Well, welcome to the bonus show. My name is Chris Spangle. We used to do this show Thursdays at 7. Everybody come over about 6:30. Back in the old days. Back when we were young and spry in like 2013, 2014. Really 2014 on. But it was always Thursdays. Then for a while, Harry and I did Tuesdays. And then Greg took Thursday nights. It was always 7 p.m. And somewhere around 2019, I was just like, I'm really tired. I got a girlfriend, and we got stuff going on. So can we move to like Saturday mornings? And I gotta tell you, doing these Wednesday night shows at 7 p.m. again, I am old. I realized I am a geezer. It is not as easy to do the night show as it is, in the mornings, because you kind of, I'm 38 now. I have high T, of course, but you're fresher at 10 a.m. than you are at 7 p.m. There's just no doubt about it. And I took a nap today. I had to. I woke up at 4:30, just kind of with my brain going. If that happens to you, where I just wake up most days between 4:30 and 6, and my brain is just going. And I'm thinking about everything, and I got to get up. And then it finally slows down when I meditate around 8-ish. What's the name of this podcast? Sorry, I'm breathy. I don't know why I'm doing better. Transcendental Meditation Guided by Raphael Reeder. Meditation with Raphael. There's just like this one that I listen to, and it's just like this noise. And let's see if I can, here it is. I might go into a trance right now. And you just like listen to that bottom noise or that top noise, and I'll just like sit there for like 20 minutes, and it just takes all my anxiety away. It's like a shower for your brain, and I've been doing that for about the last month or two. Most days, you're supposed to do it twice a day. Just sit in your chair and breathe. And it's literally just that noise for like 20 minutes, and there's little pings that you might hear. And that really helps. That helps a lot. It kind of gives me like a second wind through the day. Let me just save that for tomorrow. And so I can't recommend that enough. That has really, really helped me kind of chill out. But I'm feeling better. I am tired today. I don't know. It's just not sunny out. I'm like a plant when it's sunny out. But I had, let me turn around for those of you on video. It's nowhere near its glory. It's probably just a little pink. But I know Christy's probably watching. Should I show the picture of my neck? So basically what happened, I got an ingrown hair, was it 2 weeks ago? Yeah, it's 2 weeks ago now. So like Monday, early in April, I woke up and my scalp was just kind of like zitty. So it was the 4th. Yeah, I woke up the 4th. And I just had like I have an ingrown hair bump kind of back in the back of my neck that always kind of rises up. And it just started getting a little bit worse every day for a week. And by Thursday, it was kind of like a lima bean back there. And I actually passed out on the 5th at the gym. And everyone's like, oh, you should go to the ER. But I'm like, it's just kind of small. And I probably should have at that point, for sure. And especially when you like pass out and throw up. Which I thought was a panic attack, but it was not. It was part of the infection that was taking place back there. It was MRSA. And by Friday, I was in a lot of pain. It was getting worse and worse. And so I'd done telehealth like that Tuesday or Wednesday. They gave me antibiotic cream. That wasn't going to do shit. And Friday night, went and got an antibiotic. And they said, if it gets worse, you need to go to the ER. I wake up Saturday morning, and the whole back of my head and neck is swollen. It's gone from a lima bean to being bigger than the size, height, width of a credit card on the back of my neck. So I go to the ER, have them check it out, and they're like, "This is not good." I'm like, "No kidding." My grandfather went to that ER in '89 when I was a 3-year-old and had his leg amputated for a staph infection. And there was some sort of like deep set memory in my mind when I went into that ER that I flashed back to, and I freaked out. My blood pressure hit 211, which is never any, it's most 150 if I'm anxious. I was losing it. It was honestly it was horrible. Just sitting there, you gain such a new perspective. Like, I've never been sick. I've never been in the ER. Like, you've heard the most sickly I've ever been just with COVID over the last few months. Laying in a hospital bed, like, you feel so helpless. And it just made me feel for anybody that goes through regular treatments or has chronic illnesses or of any kind, or kids. You just feel, it gives you a new perspective on how tough that is. Just having because of my grandfather, I hate everything medical. And so I freak out when I get my blood pressure done. Oh, I hate it. And it just like the thought that every 4 hours of coming in and checking your blood pressure is enough to like make me go run a marathon. So I never have to go back there. But I was just in searing pain through that last weekend. And Monday went back to the doctor because it was not getting better. They gave me a new antibiotic and opioids. Tried opioids. And so Monday night I had to go to Cincinnati for work. So I'm driving down to Cincinnati, and anytime, and like, you can't see this, but like the knot was so big it had pressed on the nerves going from the back of my head into my neck and shoulders. So my neck and shoulders couldn't move. And so to turn to look to change the lane, I had to turn my entire head and neck. I had one sleeping position that I could possibly sleep in. But I'm like sitting there going, "Oh, I got opioids. This is gonna be great." I don't do drugs for a reason, but when I get them, I'm excited about it. So I get to the hotel in Cincy and just feeling terrible, but I've got opioids, and I'm going up to the room and I'm like, "This is gonna be great." I don't know what I imagine. I imagine like you must be like floating on clouds, or, I mean, remember, I don't do drugs. I don't smoke weed. I don't drink. I don't know anything about this life here, but I'm sitting there going, "Oh, well, I'm surely if I take one of these, I'm just going to be a wreck, but all my pain will go away." So I take it. Nothing. Like an hour in, I'm texting my mom, who's a nurse. I'm like, "I don't feel anything. This is horrible." So I had to keep taking the max of Advil and Tylenol together, plus my opioids, and then that antibiotic. Like, I took one pill and it immediately just started to drain. So for the next few days, I had like brown gravy leaking out of the back of my neck, and it felt so much better. It's just like instant relief. Oh, but now it's real itchy because it's kind of healing, but I'm on the mend. But yeah, I was just but I kept podcasting through it all. And that's the thing you need to realize. I'm a hero. I'm an ingrown hair survivor. I am not addicted to opioids, thank goodness. I just took my last one. I don't feel the need to get any more. Don't even really need it, but I just felt like, I'm just gonna take this last one and make sure it's not sitting around the house in case we get robbed. I don't want this single tramadol to get robbed. But as an ingrown hair survivor, a person who's lived through MRSA, I just want you all to thank me for my bravery for doing a podcast and being consistent, and multiple podcasts too. I mean, I was not able last week, and I had to cancel a couple. But you go watch last weekend's Pat Down a week from yesterday. It was rough. I'm like, I've just been in a shitty mood. My poor wife and daughter are just like, "Ugh. Are you about done being grumpy?" But I could not do anything last week, so I apologize for not doing the bonus last week. But that's what's been going on with me. That's what's been new in my life. Just brown gravy leaking out of the back of my head. See, I'm not a bad luck person. I'm really not. I have great luck. Look how good my life is. It's just the last 9 months have been shitty. All right, so let's save America. I don't know why I started with that story. Oh, and I got my daughter's cough. Oh, fuck. So Trisha Gingerarchy. See, I don't have. So I turned around. Maybe I can pull up a photo and show that. Because, I mean, if you see it now, just like looking at it, it's a little pink. It's not too bad. But it's just the back of my head. But you got to realize how big this thing was. I've got pictures of the gravy if you guys want to see that. Let's see. It just kept getting worse. Let's look at this one. That's not very good. All right, this one's kind of gross. So I'm sorry. But someone on the Patreon asked for it, and so you get to see it. Let's see here. Share this. All right, so this is Wednesday of last week. Oops, that's Gilbert Godfrey. So you can kind of see, like here, how malformed it is, and how it kind of like puffs out, and how my hair, my hair is like real dense, and then see how it kind of like up here starts to get spaced out. That's work. There's some of the pus. But then, the antibiotics kick in, and it starts to get a little bit better. But yeah, it was. I don't think I have anything to hide here on the photos, but this one, these are, look how big that is. That's the back of my head. See how the hair is like complete, like I look bald here because it's just so big. That's Tuesday. So yeah, it was really bad. So I'm glad to be alive, glad to be here. I've survived, and I'm trying to get this off the screen. I've survived another challenge, but yeah, not leading with that on the show. Just a little bonus for you people. But like I said, we're here to save America tonight. I'm going to do a lot of reading tonight. Maybe not all of it. I really think this article was something that everybody ought to go read. I think it's a really interesting, thoughtful article that kind of summarizes where we're at, where we all kind of instinctually feel we are at the moment. And it is called Why the Past 10 Years of American Life Have Been Uniquely Stupid by Jonathan Haidt over at The Atlantic. And Haidt wrote The Righteous Mind and The Coddling of the American Mind, with Greg Lukianoff of, I think, FIRE, free speech organization. And that's a great book, and I recommend that. And Haidt is not playing for any team. He's a social psychologist. I wonder if at the end of this article they kind of give you his little short bio. But yeah, he's a social psychologist who really talks about the dynamics of religious belief and polarization, and he's a really interesting guy, and I recommend you checking out his work. And he wrote this article, Why the Past 10 Years of American Life Have Been Uniquely Stupid, and we're going to talk about that this Saturday, but I wanted to kind of read through it, or at least give you some of the highlights of this now, instead of like having the gang all here and us, them like sitting there watching me read for, a tremendous amount of time. The autumn, if you go to Atlantic's website, they have like a little thing that'll read this to you. It's 53 minutes long. So I don't intend to read all of this. I'm just going to hit the highlights. See here, you can play it and it's 53 minutes long. And he kind of starts out by saying that this is the new Babel. And the point of Babel, if you're not familiar with the biblical story, early in Genesis, they're building a tower to climb to the top of the heavens to make a name for themselves. And God was offended by the hubris of humanity and basically goes down and confuses their language so they can't understand each other. And, unable to communicate. He writes, people wandering amid the ruins, unable to communicate, condemned to mutual incomprehension. And he thinks this is a good metaphor for where we're at in the 2010s, because something went wrong, terribly wrong, very suddenly, and we're disoriented, unable to speak the same language or recognize the same truth. And I think that's a good diagnosis. Now, he's not saying that Trump got elected and everything's terrible. That's not his point. But I think everybody can kind of think back to 2010, and at least there was a shared reality. And there seems to not be a shared reality anymore. And there seems to just be two distinct cultures, vulture cultures that are just trying to take over. And he talks a little bit about that later. We are disoriented, unable to speak the same language or recognize the same truth. We are cut off from one another and from the past. It's just a very disorienting time right now. And we break it down into red and blue, but it's a little bit more complex than that. I think it's, even within, let's say I'm in the right. I mean, I'm more of a right winger, and I represent like one island of libertarianism. Like, it's me and some of our co-hosts, not even all of our co-hosts. I'm a big believer in the advocates for self-government and Harry Brown, and am trying to keep that torch alive. A pro-democratic, libertarian, thought, not necessarily trying to make peace with government and reform it, but, at least kind of keep traditional America in the forefront. I don't know how totally to describe it, because the libertarian that's more dominant right now, to the Ron Paul wing, is a little more pro-authoritarian, or at least a little more comfortable with it. And the monarchist wing, and then there's the post-libertarian wing, and there's the the anarcho-capitalist wing, and then there's like there's just all these different wings even within our little subset of the right, which has its own. Steve Bannon is not the same as Sean Hannity, even, who is definitely not the same as George Will or Jonah Goldberg. So there's, even within these wings, there's just a lot of division. And listen, that's nothing new. There's a book out called The Right by Matthew Continetti that kind of details a lot of this stuff. I'm reading Buckley by Carl Bogus, which is great. It outlines all the different strains of conservatism in the 50s that Buckley was trying to put together for National Review. None of this is new. And so his version of the modern Tower of Babel is social media, and lays a lot of the division and blame at the foot of social media, and writes, there is a direction to history, and it is toward cooperation at large scales. We see this trend in biological evolution, in this series of major transitions through which multicellular organisms first appeared and then developed new symbiotic relationships. We see it in cultural evolution too, as Robert Wright explained in his 1999 book, Non-Zero, The Logic of Human Destiny. Wright showed that history involves a series of transitions driven by rising population density plus new technologies, writing, roads, the printing press, that created new possibilities for mutually beneficial trade and learning. Zero-sum conflicts, such as the wars of religion that arose around the printing press spread heretical ideas across Europe, were better thought of as temporary setbacks and sometimes even integral to the progress. Wright argued that those wars of religion transitioned modern nation states with better informed citizens. So, and we tend to think, I got my first gateway in 1994, and we tend to think of, when I think about how I viewed the internet until around 2018, 2019, I'm a true believer. 12 years old, getting my first computer, getting on AOL, number 19 million into Facebook. As soon as it came to my college, I logged on. I was on MySpace. I was on Friendster, on Twitter immediately. I have been an early and aggressive adopter of all these technologies for the reasons that we all felt hopeful about it. That it gave me a voice. It's allowing me to talk to you. And that's really an important part of this, right? So the ability to come and talk to you and have all these comments flowing through and chit-chatting, you have the great ability to connect with people in a way that you didn't, in 1985. But there's obviously a dark side. Otherwise, everybody wouldn't hate Facebook. They wouldn't, so he goes on. By 2008, Facebook had emerged as the dominant platform with 100 million monthly users, 3 billion users today. In the first decade of the new century, social media was widely believed to be a boon to democracy. What dictator could impose his will on an interconnected citizenry? What regime could build a wall to keep out the internet? I don't know. I'm watching Shanghai right now. I'm watching Russia. I'm watching our own. So, that promise, I think that's the heartbreaking part, is the promise of the open and free internet that we all dreamed about has kind of come crashing down over the last few years, or has at least been tarnished. I don't think that we have anywhere near a closed internet system, right? But we're definitely all kind of funneled into the big tech areas, and it's harder and harder to get out of them. Now, he says the high point of techno-democratic optimism, of which I would include myself in that camp. I remember saying to Dave Smith when I was on his show, well, technology is going to make us all freer as we move forward. It's going to make things better for everybody. It's going to liberate us. He's like, I don't know about that. But I do consider myself a techno-democratic optimist. So in 2011, a year that began with the Arab Spring and ended with the global Occupy movement, that's also when Google Translate hit. So everybody could talk. So the Tower of Babel came crashing down once we were all able to communicate with Google Translate, which isn't as good as you think. Like those Ukrainian orphans trying to talk on, Google Translate is not as easy as everybody thinks it is. Now, he writes in February 2012, as Zuckerberg went to take Facebook public, he wrote, "Today our society has reached another tipping point." He wrote that Facebook hoped to rewire the way people spread and consume information by giving the power to share and help them to once again transform any of our core institutions and industry. And 10 years later, Zuckerberg did exactly what he said he was going to do. He rewired the way we spread and consume information. He did transform our institutions, and he pushed us past the tipping point. It just hasn't worked out as he expected, which isn't the way it always works with central planning. So, he then goes on to kind of talk about what makes up a society. Historically, civilizations have relied on shared blood, gods, and enemies to counteract the tendency to split apart as they grow. So, blood, meaning if you're in Lithuania, you're a Lithuanian. Gods, Italy, a Catholic nation, right? Or shared enemies. If you're in Nazi Germany, they had the Jews and other nation states. If you're in Russia right now, we're one of those shared enemies. But what is it that holds together large and diverse secular democracies such as the US and India, or Britain or France? Social scientists have identified at least 3 major forces that collectively bind together successful democracies: social capital, extensive social networks with high levels of trust, strong institutions, and shared stories. Social media has weakened all 3. To see how, we must understand how social media changed over time, and especially in the several years following 2009. So in the early incarnations, MySpace and Facebook, basically, if you think back, they were pretty benign. It was just, static pages that you added things to, your favorite bands, you'd make a post. Chris is at home. Chris is feeling sad. Go look through your post from 2009. It's very banal. In this way, early social media can be seen as just another step in the long progression of technological improvements, from the postal service through the telephone to email and texting, that helped people achieve the eternal goal of maintaining their social ties. But gradually, social media users became more comfortable sharing more intimate details of their lives. As Tobias Rose Stockwell wrote in a 2019 Atlantic article, they became more adept at putting on performances and managing their personal brand, activities that might impress others, but don't deepen friendships in the way that private phone conversations will. Once social media platforms had trained users to spend more time performing and less time connecting, the stage was set for major transformation, which began in 2009, the intensification of viral dynamics. And I think that's a really interesting point, in that performing has become the core thing that you do on social media. It isn't about connecting. You always hear Mark Zuckerberg talking how we're connecting the world. Well, you've just built a platform for people to perform. You've just built a stage. Go on Instagram, and how much realness do you get on Instagram, do you think? I don't know that you get that much. But I think the performance aspect of Facebook is, as an early adopter, I mean, I'm here because of it. I understood it instinctually in 2005. Like, this was a marketing platform. This wasn't Facebook to me, or Twitter, or any of these social media networks to me were never about connecting with friends and family. And that was kind of it. That was kind of why it was pushed. But there's a reason it's called the publish button. I opted for the secondary purpose of Facebook that Zuckerberg always talked about, which was your own publishing platform. You can publish whatever you want. And one of the reasons I dislike Facebook now is that promise went away. You know, that they undermined that main thing that made it attractive, and said in 2018, we don't want you doing this, and if you want to, you need to pay us. And then censorship got even worse, and now it's just unusable as a publisher. They want you just posting about your friends and family, but you don't see that. You don't see your friends and family. You see brands. Brands that paid, or you see things that make you angry. There's a reason we stopped publishing to the We Are Libertarians Facebook page a year or two ago. I realized, like, the only way to get any kind of, like, let me show you. I don't know that I may have to stop sharing this here. Yeah. Okay, so let me go show you our analytics. Oops, that's Bob and Tom. So let me show you on our back end of our Facebook page. All right, so here we are. Here is a post an hour ago of the last podcast. We basically just post podcast articles. 124,000 reach. So this number, 46,000 people reached over the last 7 days, the last 28 days. On a page of 100,000 people, only 46,000 reached. This was in the millions at the end of 2020 because we were posting a lot of memes and I was letting Ryan run wild. 124 people reached. This is Mott. Mott, I love you. You like literally everything. 212 people reached for this podcast. 434 for this Brian podcast. Let's see. Yep, Mott. Gingerarchy, 424 reached. 580 for Rimzo, one like. You know, this 365 people. Now, if you were to go and look at a meme, 112 shares, 201. I don't know what the analytics, but it's probably pretty high and probably makes up a pretty good share. But you can see this is November when these memes were posted. You know, even if you try to do like memes that are, 21 shares, that's not bad. But the point being is that you have to piss people off if you want to get any reach on Facebook. They incentivize you to anger people, to be divisive. And I'm not going to play that game. And there's a tremendous amount of incentive to grow my business by getting attention and joining the movement to call Disney a bunch of groomers, and to hop on the DeSantis train and look the other way when he wants to use the government to force people to live out his values. I know there's a lot of money in that, and a lot more audience. But I'm not going to do that to people, and I'm not going to do that to myself, and I'm not going to ask other people to do that on my behalf. So, the reality is that they have a product that, and as on the other side for my day job as a brand manager, they don't give you any of the analytics that they used to give you. You cannot get any kind of organic growth, even if you're building a product that people want that is PG-13, that, let me show you kind of the back end of the Bob and Tom stuff. Look at what we've posted today. It's like puppet videos, right? It's the history of potato chips. It's, Miss Pat career announcements. And it's like stuff that is, folksy and homespun. And it doesn't get nearly as much as Ben Shapiro does, who is punching trannies in the face. Like, that's the bulk of, I saw the Daily Wire, Michael Knowles saying there was a TikTok trend of Hooters girls who had these like shorty shorts. The shorts have gotten even like shorter. And Michael Knowles said that's a good thing. They knew what they were getting into and they worked there. And they shouldn't complain. This is just their lot in life to be over-sexualized. That's what they get. Meanwhile, here's the guy who's like complaining about over-sexualizing our children and groomers, and we need to be a Christian nation, and not listening to like if these women are being maltreated by their company, and they're complaining. And they won, by the way. They said they could choose which shorts they wanted to choose, which is the perfect option. Choose the booty shorts or choose the less booty shorts. But it just like struck me as like, this dude just will say anything, even if it doesn't really jive with his principles, because it's going to get clicks. So I just think they're a really horrible product. I think Facebook, like Instagram, he talked a little bit in an interview. He didn't talk much in the article, but he talked in the interview. Maybe I can pull this up and play it for you. A lot about what's happening with teen girls and Instagram. And this is all stuff that Facebook knows, by the way. They know that they have a product that young women are harming themselves because of Instagram, because of the way that they've structured it. They're not really doing anything with their product to make it better. There's some structural changes that these companies can make, but they're resistant to use them, and I think they're going to end up regulated like tobacco companies. I'm not going to call for that. I don't want to see that. They're not going to help make it better, but I do think that's where all this stuff's going to end up. So this is Jonathan Haidt on what's happening with teen girls and social media on Amanpour and Company, which is not typically a source for a libertarian podcast, but he makes some interesting points here. And later in the interview, he starts talking about how diversity training doesn't work, and the interviewer's like choking on his sandwich. Like, what do you mean? He's like, diversity is good. Diversity training doesn't work. It's a really funny interview. I'll put in the show notes.
That, and you put social media at the center of a lot of it. Now, before we get to sort of the politics and the impacts of social media on our institutions and life, I also want to note something that you follow pretty closely, and that's the research of what social media is doing to the minds of children, the behaviors of children, and maybe how that now contributes to this larger essay and larger topic that you're talking about. So what do we know about the research on how social media is affecting kids today?
Well, thanks, Harry. Thanks so much for having me on. And I think that is the best place to start, because that's where I think the evidence is clearest. And actually, the kids were the canaries in the coal mine. My article in The Atlantic is about how something changed, something fundamentally changed in the nature of the social universe in the early 2010s. And everything got weird and kind of stupid after that. And we see it clearly, most clearly with the kids. All kids have been on screens all the time. When I was a kid, when you were a kid, we watched too much television. But you couldn't take the television with us to school or into the bedroom. And something changed when kids got smartphones. And it's not just the phone, it's especially social media. The girls went right for the visual platforms, Instagram and Tumblr. The boys went more for YouTube and video games. And at the time, people said, well, maybe this is good for them to have so much stimulation. But actually what happened beginning in 2012 was that rates of depression, anxiety, self-harm, and suicide all began going up. I mean, it wasn't a gradual thing. It was like they were sort of stable until 2012. And then it's like a hockey stick. They're now, most of them are 100% high. We've had a doubling of the rates of suicide, self-harm, depression, and anxiety. So that has really drawn me in, because this, I think, is a national emergency, one that is tractable. And I've been studying this in depth to try to figure out what is the evidence that social media actually is a contributor. And there is a fair amount now.
Now, people are going to question that and say, well, where there's correlation and there's causation. We even have the Surgeon General putting out a warning. I mean, this is something that, we are used to on the equivalent scale of saying that tobacco is a bad idea to consume.
That's right. So there's a long history of moral panics, especially around technology. And I've been engaging with other psychologists who say that I'm fomenting a moral panic. And they're right to be concerned about that, because most of the previous times we freaked out about technology, it hasn't been actually anything. This time, I believe, is different for a couple of reasons. The first is that there's never been a hockey stick graph like that sudden upturn in mental health problems. So this time is different. Two is that the timing is exactly what you'd expect for social media. It's not a gradual thing. It's not like something changed and then something else kind of changed. As soon as most kids get on social media, and right then, the very next year, rates of depression and anxiety start going up. And then a final kind of data is the kids themselves say it. I mean, when we were growing up, we didn't say, television is making us all crazy. Mom and dad, do something. But if you talk to the kids, and Facebook, Instagram, they talk to the kids. And guess what? They say, yep, Instagram is what's making us depressed and anxious.
As you lay out that there is this research.
All right. So, again, a really good interview there. He also did one with Barry Weiss on her podcast, which I really like Barry Weiss's podcast. If I had the time and money, for goodness sake, I got to... So the computer's not connected to the board for some reason, and I can't figure it out. I don't know what's going on. I'm annoyed by it. I think I just figured it out. I think I know what it is, but I'm not going to mess with it now, even though I want to fix it. So how did we get to this point? And he blames it on the viral dynamics of these platforms. So before 2009, they gave us this simple timeline, right? That friends and connections, people that we knew, giving us this stream of content. But that didn't pay them. They needed a way to get paid, so they allowed brands on with pages. And then in 2009, Facebook offered users a way to like posts with a click of a button. Twitter unveiled the retweet button. Facebook soon innovated with its own share button, which became available in only 2012. We think those are permanent parts of Facebook, but those are later innovations. I mean, I was on Facebook from 2005 to 2012 without a share button. It was literally just commenting a status, posting a photo, kind of talking about your life, right? And now what is it? When you go on Facebook, like, let's just open up my Facebook and take a look and see what we see. Because it's really hard to just describe what it is. It's ads. Is it news? Here's a McDuffin meme. We got some advertisements over here. A Christian podcast called Reasons to Believe, giving me a free PDF. Ms. Pat, St. Augustine News, a Facebook group. Being Liberal. I don't know why, but this one has been at the top of my feed. I like 8,000 different pages, literally. But this Being Liberal post, they must be it's 1 hour. They must be reposting it, because I've seen them post this Elon Musk article like 100 times today. Christy Avery cooking some steaks. CRT lies, an advertisement, some reels, some memes. indie kids, other 98% Hoover Institution. So a lot of politics, a little bit of friends, but like, have you seen one family photo? Like, I guess that's kind of a family photo. This is local Politico. She's updated her page. Anthony Meyer with his memes. So it's a lot of groups and memes and other stuff, right? Like, all right, so here's the first friend photo. But how long did I have to scroll for that? And here, by the way, is how you handle notifications. You open up the little bell. You go to mark as all read with under the 3 little hamburgers. And then you click off the website. That is how you do Facebook. So there's no like personal engagement in the same way that there used to be. It's a lot of like, I don't know, it's a lot of stuff I'm not that interested in. So it's kind of become a junky part of the internet for me. At least if I go on Twitter, I may see a couple jokes, I may see some news. And I will typically go to Twitter or Instagram because Instagram will kind of see friends and family. So shortly after its like button began to produce data, Height writes, about what best engaged its users, Facebook developed algorithms to bring each user the content most likely to generate a like or some other interaction, eventually including a share as well. Later research shows that posts that trigger emotions, especially anger at outgroups, are the most likely to be shared. So their algorithm is designed to get you to share. So if you're a content creator who's a libertarian meme page and you care about getting likes and shares, what are you going to share? Well, beating up on the left and the latest nutty leftist thing that you've seen on libs of TikTok or Defiant L's, that's going to get you a bigger lift and more numbers for your page than posting something about libertarian philosophy. Beating up on the lefties or the commies or the tankies is going to get you more likes and comments than trying to inform people. Beating up on somebody who is a moderate within your world is going to get you more attention and help you with your goals of growing your numbers more than saying something nice about somebody within your own camp. Creating outgroups, so the concept of in-group and out-group, right? Like, I am a libertarian white Christian straight male in the Midwest. And if you're one of those, you're in my in-group. But if you are, a black, Jewish, gay female, then supposedly you're on the out-group for me. And the easiest way for me to get hits is to go to my other in-group fellows and say, look at them and how different they are. But if you're a Republican, your out-group is a Democrat. If you're a Republican, your in-group is a Republican. But even within that, your in-group is the people who have your persuasion. Like, if you're in the libertarian world and you're in the Mises Caucus, your in-group's the Mises Caucus, and your out-group is anybody that's a prag. And the best way to pump your numbers up is to beat up on a pragmatist, instead of like promoting what that pragmatic libertarian is doing right, where you agree, you make an enemy out of them. You're rewarded with more likes. You're rewarded with more algo lifts. Now, by 2013, he writes, social media had become a new game with dynamics unlike those in 2008. If you're a skillful or lucky, you might create a post that would go viral and make you, quote, internet famous for a few days. If you blundered, you could find yourself buried in hateful comments. Your post rode to fame or ignominy based on the clicks of thousands of strangers, and in turn contributed thousands of clicks to the game. This new game encouraged dishonesty and mob dynamics. And that's, I think, the part that's galling about the people who always are complaining about the mob is coming to get us. Like, you're just another mob. You're using mob dynamics and mob tactics to fight the mob. Users were guided not just by their true preferences, but by their past experiences of reward and punishment, and their prediction of how others would react to each new action. One of the engineers at Twitter who had worked on the retweet button later revealed that he regretted his contribution because it made Twitter a nastier place. He thought to himself, we might have just handed a 4-year-old a loaded weapon. Haidt writes, as a social psychologist who studies emotion, morality, and politics, I saw this happening too. The newly tweaked platforms were almost perfectly designed to bring out our moralistic and least reflective selves. The volume of outrage was shocking. And then he goes on to talk a little bit about James Madison and the Constitution. It was just this kind of twitchy and explosive spread of anger that James Madison had tried to protect us from as he was drafting the U.S. Constitution. The framers of the Constitution were excellent social psychologists. They knew that democracy had an Achilles heel because it depended on the collective judgment of the people, and democratic communities are subject to the turbulency and weakness of unruly passions. The key to designing a sustainable republic, therefore, was to build in mechanisms to slow things down, to cool passions, require compromise, and give leaders some insulation from the mania of the moment while still holding them accountable to the people periodically on Election Day. What a conservative! Oh, what a fool. Talking about the Constitution, that really worked. We need to get a real Republican in there to really fix things and get rid of all this Constitution talk. The tech companies that enhanced virality from 2009 to 2012 brought us deep into Madison's nightmare. Many authors quote his comments in Federalist number 10 on the innate human proclivity towards faction, by which he meant our tendency to divide ourselves into teams or parties that are so inflamed with mutual animosity that they are much more disposed to vex and oppress each other than to cooperate for their common good. Let me reread that. They're so inflamed with mutual animosity that they're much more disposed to vex and oppress each other than to cooperate for their common good. But that essay continues on to a less quoted yet equally important insight about democracy's vulnerability to triviality. Madison notes that people are so prone to factionalism, or as I like to call it, breads and circuses, that where no substantial occasion presents itself, the most frivolous and fanciful distinctions have been sufficient to kindle their unfriendly passions and excite their most violent conflicts. Social media has both magnified and weaponized the frivolous. Is our democracy any healthier now that we've had Twitter brawls over AOC's Tax the Rich dress, or Melania Trump's dress at the 9/11 memorial event, or Ted Cruz's Big Bird tweets? You know, we are stuck in arguing about trivial things that don't matter, that don't really affect us. And if you don't engage in the conversation, well, then somebody on the extreme is going to aim a gun at the moderate and go, play along, or else you're a weak, limp-wristed little, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what is talk of ideology, talk of principles, talks of what's actually kind of going on. These are considered foolish on the extreme left and right, and they command a lot of the attention because of the environments that have been set up by these systems. Now, it's not just a waste of time and scarce attention that it matters. It's the continual chipping away of trust. An autocracy can deploy propaganda or use fear to motivate the behaviors it desires, but a democracy depends on widely internalized acceptance of the legitimacy of rules, norms, and institutions. Blind and irrevocable trust in any particular individual or organization is never warranted. But when citizens lose trust in elected leaders, health authorities, the courts, the police, universities, and the integrity of elections, then every decision becomes contested. Every election becomes a life and death struggle to save the country from the other side. The most recent Edelman Trust Barometer, an international measure of citizens' trust in government, business, media, and non-government organizations, showed that stable and competent autocracies, China and the UAE, at the top of the list, while contentious democracies such as the US, UK, Spain, and South Korea scored near the bottom, above Russia. Imagine trusting your government in China. I mean, and that's where we're headed, guys, is that people want to feel safe, that they don't want to feel factionalized. They don't want to feel that the other side, if they take over, they're going to get us. They don't want to feel the burden of participating in any of these conversations. They just want somebody to fix it. And what you end up with is somebody that will fix the other side using the force of government. Ron DeSantis, to me, is the perfect example of this on the right. Here's a guy who is right on things like COVID. but is more willing to use the government to craft his view, aka to force other people to live the way he sees they ought to live at the point of a gun, than are a lot of like classically liberal oriented Republican politicians. But he's incredibly popular for that very reason, because he makes people feel like somebody's in charge. Somebody's going to get a hold of all of this craziness that I keep reading about day after day after day in email newsletters and Twitter and Facebook and CRT and Fox News and OAN. And the left has all these same versions. I'm not just picking on the right. It's just he's the most readily available, I think, to most of our audience because we are more on the right. Recent academic studies suggest that social media is indeed corrosive to trust in governments, news media, people, and institutions in general. Hey, this show's bread and butter has been for 10 years getting you to distrust governments, news media, people, and institutions in general. And I feel conflicted about that because there are institutions like modern mainstream journalism that deserves, like this Taylor Lorenz who goes on TV and just cries about being doxxed as a reporter, and they're just so mean to me, and then publishes yesterday, doxes the Libs of TikTok girl. Okay, so you're using your position as a cudgel against the people that you feel are causing you pain. You don't have a principle that doxing is wrong or that opening people up to being abused by the mob are wrong. You want to just be in control of your own mob, right? Like that is a very corrosive behavior to many people. Like that, it's, well, if you're going to act that way, Taylor Lorenz at the Washington Post, then we need the Babylon Bee and we need Breitbart to do the same thing to you because you don't know how to behave. And so then you get into this viral loop of abuse going back and forth instead of everybody just kind of saying like, hey, maybe some of this stuff just needs to chill. Maybe like we're not all saving democracy by outing anonymous TikTokers. So, excuse me. Recent academic studies suggest that social media is indeed corrosive to trust in governments, news media, people, and institutions in general. I, over the last couple of years, specifically the last year since January 6th, have started to think more about the role institutions play. You can go back and listen to the bonus episode that we did on civil society. But, institutions are good. News, media, and journalism are good. People helping people is good. Yes, even some levels of government, in my opinion, are good. Like courts, all right? Not much, but it's to be used sparingly. Sorry, Trisha. But a working paper that offers the most comprehensive review of the research, led by the social scientists Philip Lorenz Spreen and Lisa Oswald, concludes that the large majority of reported associations between digital media use and trust appeared to be detrimental for democracy. The literature is complex, so some studies show benefits, particularly in less developed democracies, but the review found that, on balance, social media amplifies political polarization, foments populism, especially right-wing populism, and associated with the spread of misinformation. Oh, that's just liberal. Oh, this is the Atlantic, and that's owned by a friend of the Epstein, so, why could you not trust this? When people lose trust in institutions, they lose trust in the stories told by those institutions. That's particularly true of the institutions entrusted with the education of children. History curricula have often been used as a political controversy, but Facebook and Twitter make it possible for parents to become outraged every day over a new snippet from their child's history lessons. Not their, I would say, not their children's history lessons. Some rando history lesson from San Francisco that is then used to blanket the country as if this is happening in Plainfield, Indiana. And math lessons and literature selections and any new pedagogical shifts anywhere in the country. The motives of teachers and administrators come into question, and overreaching laws or curricular reforms sometimes follow, dumbing down of education, reducing trust in it further. One result is that young people educated in the post-Babel area are less likely to arrive at a coherent story of who we are as a people, and less likely to share any story with those who attend different schools or were educated in a different decade. Now, see, that's where Harry or Reinhold would have talked while I coughed. So, I'm fine, I promise. I'm going to get one of those vitamin C shots and feel all better. So, I'm going to stop reading there, and I'll do like a part 2 at some point, maybe a part 3 on this, because I think this is really good stuff. And it is in line with a lot of what we've talked about here over the last year or two. And it kind of gets to where are we going? Because we can't go back. We're not going back to 2012. We're not going back to 2014. What do we do? What do we do going forward? But I think there's a lot of nuggets in there to kind of think about in terms of the problem. Is social media singularly the problem? No. But we'll talk a little bit about that this coming Saturday on The Big Show. These are the prep episodes for that. Doing my prep in public with you guys here on the bonus show. And then I will do the second half of this article for you at some point. Maybe not live, maybe fake live. So, I'm airing a lot of stuff. I did the history show, just kind of on a whim, put up 8 days in a row of the history show, and got a lot of people starting to notice that show exists. So that was great. And so StreamYard's awesome because you can kind of record something and then play it back later after you've edited it all together. So there will, as Christy Avery calls them, fake lives. So the next one may be a fake live. This was live. But the problem with doing it like this is that I couldn't read your comments because I was reading the article. So, But I like this. I thought this was good. So, like, if there's going to be a prep episode, maybe do the reading alone here with you guys, and then have more of the conversation on the Saturday show. But, All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me here on the bonus show. Love you guys. Thank you for being a patron. You guys are awesome, and I really appreciate your support, and we'll see you on part 2.